They say Rome collapsed in the year 476 AD. But history has a way of creating shadows where truth should be. Because somewhere in the mountains of northern Italy, a signal was recorded during the height of the Cold War. A signal that matched no known military frequency, modern or ancient, except for one: the tactical cipher once used by Rome's late legions. Intelligence analysts dismissed it as an error, until satellite images revealed structures shaped exactly like Roman castra, fortified camps, hidden deep inside a restricted alpine valley, as if an army that should have died 15 centuries ago had simply marched out of history and kept going. They first noticed it on a cold January night in 1972. NATO's alpine surveillance network picked up a short burst of encrypted radio chatter, weak, nearly lost in static, but unmistakably patterned. At first, technicians thought it came from an outdated Italian relay, but when the algorithm decoded the rhythm, it flagged something impossible. A Roman tactical cipher, last recorded on brittle papyrus manuscripts stored in the Capitoline Museum. No one knew how to react. The room fell silent as the data printed across the screen in precise intervals. 3 long bursts, 2 short, a pause, then a final pulse. The exact sequence ancient Roman scouts used to signal the presence of enemy movement along frontier borders. But the frontier they once guarded no longer existed, and Rome's last legion had vanished 15 centuries earlier. Within the hour, NATO ordered a satellite sweep. The images came back blurry due to dense alpine fog, but hidden beneath the mist were geometric shapes no natural formation could make. Rectangular outlines, defensive walls, a watchtower foundation, all arranged exactly like a Roman castrum, a fortress camp. The analysts knew one thing: this wasn't a medieval ruin. The wooden structures looked intact. And something else stood out. Something that made the lead analyst step back from his console. Footpaths, fresh ones, not wide enough for vehicles, but too uniform to be made by hikers, as if an organized group still marched through the valley. When Italy's military command reviewed the images, they classified the entire case under a new name: Operazione Umbra, Operation Shadow. The mission was simple: find out who, or what, was generating Roman military signals in 1972. A small reconnaissance team was deployed. They were veterans, trained in mountain warfare, equipped with radios, climbing gear, and orders not to engage with anything they found. For 2 days, nothing unusual happened. The valley was colder than expected, unnaturally quiet, and so fog-drenched that sunlight rarely pierced through. But on the 3rd day, just past dawn, Sergeant Caruso noticed a strange pattern carved into the snow, a straight line broken every 8 steps. Exactly how legionaries once marched to conserve energy in winter terrain. The deeper they pushed, the more anomalies appeared. A discarded spearhead, polished, a leather strap, recently oiled, and on the ridge above them, a silhouette, broad-shouldered, unmoving, watching. Caruso raised his binoculars. The figure disappeared before he focused. But the strangest moment came that night, when the team's radio crackled with the same Roman cipher NATO had detected. Only this time, the signal wasn't distant. It was close. Very close. Caruso's men spread out around the tent perimeter, scanning the dark. Silence. Then, from the tree line, came a single sound. A horn, not a modern one. A Roman cornu, long, deep, and echoing through the frozen valley. The soldiers froze, because everyone knew what a single blast meant in ancient Roman code. You are being watched. And before the team could react, something moved through the fog, fast, silent, and organized, cutting off their retreat without ever showing a face. They didn't run at first. Training told them to hold position, assess the threat, and wait for orders. But orders never came. The radio signal that had guided them into the valley was suddenly dead, silenced, as if someone had smothered it. The fog thickened. Even their flashlights struggled to cut through more than a few meters. Then they saw it, half buried beneath frost and time, a Roman helmet, but not the corroded relic one would expect after centuries. This one was spotless, maintained, the brass shining faintly under the team's flashlight beams. Caruso lifted it. Inside, the leather padding was intact, warm, still holding body heat. Someone had worn it minutes before they arrived. The soldiers exchanged looks, their breath forming pale clouds in the freezing air. They marked the coordinates and pushed further. The valley narrowed, forming a natural corridor between two towering cliffs. On Caruso's map, there was no mention of any pass here. Yet clearly it existed, and had been used repeatedly. Fresh footprints lined the path, but not like modern boots. These were flat-soled impressions with small, square-studded patterns, Roman calligae. The tracks moved in tight formation. Whoever made them was trained. A kilometer onward, the team reached a clearing, and every man stopped cold. Laid before them, pressed into the earth like the skeleton of an ancient beast, were the remains of a Roman fortress gate. Massive wooden beams reinforced with iron bands, the design unmistakable. Caruso brushed ice off the metal. No rust. He stepped back. The fortress wasn't ancient at all. It had been rebuilt, maintained, reinforced, a living Roman camp. But why here? Why the Alps? And how had they gone undetected for centuries? The answer revealed itself when Private LaRusso found a small, tablet-like slab tucked into a stone crevice. At first glance, it resembled a chunk of dark wood. But when he wiped it clean, intricate markings emerged. Latin, script etched with surprising precision. Caruso held it up. Legae alb, it read. Legio 9, the 9th Legion, missing since the 2nd century. But here, it had a new designation. ALB, likely referring to the Alps. The mystery deepened. How had a legion that vanished around 120 AD resurfaced here, alive enough to leave fresh tracks? Before the team could process what they had found, the horn sounded again. Closer, louder, vibrating through their bones. The soldiers raised their rifles. Shadows moved among the tree line, though no shapes were clear. Then, silence. Caruso signaled retreat, but as the team turned back, a spear shot from the fog and planted itself upright in the snowy ground, just inches from LaRusso's boot. It wasn't thrown randomly, it was a warning, a boundary line. Cross it, and you enter Roman territory. But the spear had something carved into its shaft. Words in Latin, freshly etched, still smelling of resin. Nox est veniet. Night is coming. LaRusso swallowed hard, because below the message, barely visible, was a second line. Non reverti. Do not return. The men backed away slowly, until they heard footsteps behind them, multiple, synchronized, closing in with the discipline of an army that was never supposed to exist. For centuries, scholars debated what became of Legionam Hispana, vanished without a trace somewhere beyond Rome's borders. But whatever the historians believed, none of them ever imagined the truth. The Legion never died. It relocated. And now, in 1972, Sergeant Caruso and his team were discovering exactly where that trail led. The synchronized footsteps behind them were steady, measured and coordinated, too disciplined to belong to hikers, too controlled to be wildlife. Caruso motioned for his men to form a defensive semicircle. Frost crackled under their boots as cold mist swirled around their legs. But the footsteps stopped just before the fog thinned. Not an attack. Not a charge. A message. A figure stepped forward, but only halfway visible, as if the fog itself protected him. The outline was unmistakably human, tall, broad-shouldered, standing with a soldier's posture. Caruso couldn't see his face, only the metallic glint of something strapped across his chest. A Roman lorica segmentata. The man didn't move closer. Instead, he raised a hand, one slow, commanding gesture, then pointed toward the valley floor. A warning. And just as suddenly as he appeared, the figure stepped back and vanished into the white shroud of mist, leaving the team in stunned silence. Private LaRusso whispered, We need to get out. Now." Caruso agreed, but turning back proved more difficult than expected. The path they'd taken only hours before had changed. Snow had drifted over their trail, covering footprints, obscuring landmarks. Even the cliffs looked different under the falling dusk, distances warped by the valley's strange acoustics. They were not lost. They were being redirected. As they moved cautiously downhill, the fog shifted again, almost intentionally, revealing the outline of a stone wall carved into the mountainside. Unlike the wooden fortress gate they found earlier, this structure was more imposing, reinforced with granite blocks cut to perfect Roman dimensions. But something was wrong. Roman masonry wasn't supposed to be this clean, this fresh, this precise. When Caruso touched the stones, he recoiled. They were warm, not heated by sunlight. There was none. They held warmth from within. The team approached slowly, noting the faint vibrations pulsing through the rock, like machinery, or something deeper, moving beneath the mountain. Caruso pressed his ear to the wall. He heard it clearly. Marching. Hundreds of boots. In perfect Roman rhythm, but underground. "How is that possible?" LaRusso breathed. Caruso didn't answer. He had no explanation. A narrow slit in the wall caught Private Neri's eye, a firing aperture. But when he peered inside, expecting darkness, he saw something else entirely. A torchlit corridor, perfectly preserved, descending deep below through a carved tunnel. And moving shadows. Dozens of them. Neri stumbled back, shaken. Caruso made the call. They needed to retreat, regroup, and report everything. But as they began their descent, the fog split open like a curtain, and what emerged drained the color from every man's face. A standard, a Roman military banner, red cloth, gold embroidery, caught on a tree branch, fluttering gently. The emblem was unmistakable. A charging bull, symbol of Legio IX. But beneath the bull, stitched freshly, was a word that froze Caruso's breath. Vivant. They live. He grabbed the banner, but the movement triggered something. A horn sounded in the distance, this time not a warning, but a command. March. The footsteps behind them resumed. Louder now. Closer. The team broke into a run, navigating the rocky slope as night closed around them. But exiting the valley proved impossible. The fog thickened, the temperature dropped sharply, and the signal from their compass began to spin in circles. The valley was rejecting them, forcing them deeper inside. Just before the team vanished into the darkness, Caruso saw a torch ignite on the cliff above, held by a soldier wearing unmistakably Roman armor, watching their every move. Dawn never arrived. The sky remained a cold, unbroken gray as Caruso's team navigated the valley's inner folds. Hours passed, though none of the men could be sure. Their watches all froze at 03:17, the exact moment they heard the underground marching. The valley seemed alive, shifting around them, channeling them through narrow passes and steep ridges. The cliffs grew taller, the fog heavier. Even the trees looked ancient, their bark scarred by straight blade marks, sword marks, sharper than any modern steel. At midday, if it was truly midday, they reached a ledge overlooking a vast basin hidden between peaks, and when the fog thinned for the briefest moment, the impossible revealed itself. A fortress, not ruins, not a reconstruction. A fully operational Roman citadel, complete with ramparts, guard towers, and a massive stone curtain wall stretching across the valley floor. Smoke rose from within, controlled, disciplined, coming from organized hearths. Caruso's voice cracked. This can't be real. But it was. Through binoculars, the truth became clearer and more disturbing. Men patrolled the walls, carrying shields and spears, wearing uniforms of Rome's late empire. Their movements were perfect, synchronized, not a reenactment, not a performance, a functioning military force. Then Neri noticed something else, something stranger. Along the eastern wall were metallic structures, modern antenna masts wired into the stone architecture. The Legion wasn't primitive. It had integrated pieces of modern technology, adapting, evolving, a hybrid force, ancient discipline, modern awareness. Below, near the main gate, 2 cohorts marched in formation, silent, precise, their armor polished to a mirror gleam. No engine noise, no modern machinery, only boots and shields. As the team watched, one soldier broke formation and looked directly up at the ledge, not toward their general position, into the binocular lens. Caruso jerked back. He had been spotted. Moments later, a horn sounded. This one wasn't a warning or a command to march. It was something Caruso recognized from Roman military codes he studied in training. Signal of notice. You have been seen. You may proceed, or be taken. Caruso faced a decision with no good outcome. Retreat meant navigating the shifting valley blind. Staying meant approaching a military force that should not exist. But before he could choose, something changed in the valley's soundscape. A deep, resonant grinding echoed through the cliffs. The main gate of the fortress was opening, slowly, deliberately. From inside emerged a single figure, clad in blackened armor, a cloak of deep crimson, and a helmet crest marking him unmistakably as a legate, a commanding officer of Rome. He walked alone, carrying no weapon, his steps confident. When he reached the midpoint between the gate and the team's position, he raised his hand, a gesture of parley, the ancient Roman code for "we wish to speak." Caruso felt every instinct screaming to retreat, but curiosity and duty held him still. "We have to go down," he said quietly. "If we leave now, we'll never get another chance." The men exchanged fearful glances, but followed. As they descended toward the valley floor, the legate did not move. He waited with absolute patience, like someone who had waited not hours, not days, but generations. And as Caruso finally approached within speaking distance, the fog behind the legate parted, revealing hundreds of Roman soldiers standing silently in formation, shields raised, eyes locked on the intruders. They were not ghosts, not a myth, not a remnant. A living Roman army, hidden for 15 centuries. The legate removed his helmet. His first words were in flawless Latin, but chillingly clear. "You were never meant to find us. But now that you have, you cannot leave." And as the soldiers tightened formation behind him, Caruso realized the truth. The 9th Legion had not simply survived history. It had been preparing for something. And the world had just run out of time to stop them.